Deryck, good to have you with us. So tell us about the market right now, because it seems to be stuck. It's coming back from the record highs that it was reaching last week. How difficult or easy is it to find value in this type of market?
Look, I think what you've got to do is you've got to dissect it into the different sectors that comprises of the market. So at the moment, you're looking at an industrial sector, which has really driven this market to the highs that we're seeing at the moment. And one can start to argue that that's starting to look a little bit expensive. You did see some sell-offs on the retailers, like you mentioned last week. And, you've got, on the other hand, resources, which are probably a value play at the moment, but also dragging down the overall market where it is. So it's a very segmented market. It's not almost like a fully fledged bull market, but at the moment this market's definitely digesting a lot of the positivity that's been coming through. We've had earnings season come through from the US, and the information flow at this point in time is just quite thin. So the market does seem to be floating, almost drifting where it is at the moment, and the fact that we're not selling off very aggressively from where we are at the moment is very encouraging to see. You know, a market can work off an overbought status by just consolidating and drifting like it is at the moment. So the scenario still looks quite good to me, and I do see higher highs to be made, but again, it just needs to digest what it's doing at the moment.
It's interesting, when you look at the resources space and the kind of trends that we're seeing in that space. I mean, what are you seeing from your perspective in terms of the appetite to get exposure to resources right now?
Look, I think it's a big question at the moment for a lot of fundamental players out there, and as I mentioned, there's value that's showing itself. I think that the value has been there for some time now, especially over the last sort of 6 to 8 months, and that value, those stocks were cheap for a reason, and you've seen a lot of them re-rated. You saw the Anglo's results. We are waiting for Bulletin to come through now. So I think those stocks were pricing in the downturn in the cycle that we've seen at this current point in time. But looking forward from here, we've got to start to look at a bigger picture and say, okay, yes, you've got the East, which is a big driver for these resources. If you do start to see the East bottom out and you start to see that GDP uptick take place, which could potentially be in the next sort of 8 months to 12 months, you want to be positioned in resources for that. So people have been buying them, they are holding value, and I still think that there is a sense of value in those stocks at the moment, but you do need to be patient. You've got to use weakness, accumulate, and take a 3-year view with an investment like that.
A sector which has been particularly hard hit is, of course, the platinum sector, and RB Plat's the latest to report a sharp drop in earnings. I mean, diluted HEPS down 60%, production slipping back 9%. So, of course, it's this platinum price. It's come back from the February high of 1,700. It's bounced slightly at the moment, so just sitting below 1,500. Did you have a chance to look at RB Plat's numbers?
Yeah, I had a quick skim over them, but I think it comes as no surprise to see a company like that, not really benefiting. As you said, a lot of the fundamentals around the listed platinum counters at the moment haven't been in favor, and we've seen some huge sell-offs in the platinum space. I think out of the whole market, it's probably the space that you don't want to be invested at the moment. So, for the last 18 months, they've underperformed. So my sense is, and if we go back to what happened in the financial crisis, when company earnings hit a very low base and a flat line, we go back to a situation now, and we specifically look at the platinum space. The share prices are pricing in a lot of negativity and a lot of downturn in earnings. So that said, it's nice to see that these low bases are being put in place. So looking forward, you might find that it's a little bit early to say let's commit and invest in platinum, but you've probably got a window of opportunity of 6 months from now until you start to see the next set of results come through.
Would you speculate, though, on a small stock like Royal Bafokeng?
Yeah, I think you can. I think that there's a lot of other reasons other than fundamental from going into that, and there could be corporate action that could drive the price up. Who knows what can play out there, but let's look at it. I mean, out of all the platinum counters there, that is one stock that's probably held up the best. If you look
at, it's only down 12% this year.
Exactly, and you look at you look at Impalas, you look at Lonmans, obviously in the limelight in the moment, and you look at Amplats, and they're all very weak. So if you've got them, it's probably worth sitting on them and just being patient. You could find that potentially some corporate action drives up the price, or something to that effect.
Let's shift gears slightly. Super Group also reporting earnings today, full year earnings up on the other end of the spectrum, up by 2/3. So strong, return in terms of their earnings, but they're not giving a dividend out to shareholders. Do you think that's prudent of them in order to continue to fuel growth? I mean, surely at this point in time, they should start giving a little bit out there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of long-term investors are always encouraged to stay invested in a stock when they are collecting dividends. So, look, I think that's...
But, I mean, the stock's still up 4% today. So.
Correct, and I think from a capital gain perspective, if you've held the stock, I mean, it did its consolidation and, people have made very good money off Super Group. And if you just compare it to, on a like-for-like basis, to something like an Imperial, and you look at what Imperial has done over the last 18 months, I think it's one of the best performing stocks on the JSE.
Yeah, in the top 5. Do you think it's still time to hold on to those gains and wait for further gains, given the fact that management's proving its ability to deliver?
For Super Group?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that there's a lot of fundamental value in Super Group, and although a stock like that could be typically cyclical in nature, I still think there's some value unlocked to be had there. At 16.75, I think it had a good run at the into the close today, but at 16.75, it might start seeming a bit pricey, and obviously with the positive sentiment around it, I wouldn't be chasing it. Rather wait for a bit of weakness, accumulate the stock. But in my opinion, there's no reason to be selling it just yet.
Another interesting development, we had a new listing on the JSE today. Prescient Holdings reverse listing through PBT. It's a financial services company, so an interesting way to get exposure to a global financial services company. What do you think of this?
Look, I didn't really look at the pre-listing statement too closely, but just reading into the dynamics of the company, it does look like an interesting company, and I think they've restructured the internal group to benefit of some good growth, and I see that the asset base that they sit on is quite good from a value perspective, and it's where they go from here with growth. With a company like this, you've also got to have the financial market work in your favor. It's almost like...
And they've got exposure in Ireland, in places where we've had huge, financial crises. So you wonder at what point in time you're going to see a strong turnaround.
Correct. So I think that the company is listing and it's got exposure in the right markets. With a long-term view, I think it could do very well. So I think it's a very well-placed little listing. Also, what's important is it's quite tightly held by management, and that's always encouraging to see. The management obviously got the best interests of the investors at heart, to see the growth filter through, into capital gain and cash flows. So interesting listing. Let's keep our eye on this one and see where it goes.
Certainly will. Deryck, thank you so much for coming in today. Deryck Janse Van Rensburg, Portfolio Manager at BOE Stockbrokers.